out if Froggen wanted to play it. He's having a laugh about it. But there's a lot of different options, right? People have kind of talked about this dichotomy of assassins versus tanks, and tanks kind of win out there, but the assassins can still be exceptionally useful against a lot of the other members of the team. And I think that some teams have very different interpretations of the new meta than others. And I would also say that some teams have not really caught up or understood the meta just yet. I mean, I'm thinking very heavily of Cloud9's games yesterday. Their Game 2 draft showed that they really did not know what they were doing against tanks in a draft, right? Drafting things like Jhin and Taliyah as your only damage to kill off multiple frontline comps, that's not going to work. So people need to keep that in mind more. You need high consistent DPS if you're going up against tanks. Sometimes that gives you a different kind of pool of champions they have to pick from.
Yeah, it's kind of funny for Cloud9 because they also whipped out Kayn and had 2 wins on it, so clearly understanding some things, but not everything. And there are just so many changes on this pad.
And I mean, it could just be a one-off bad draft, like, oops, you know, my mistake, whatever. But it's one of those situations where in a lot of these games, I'm seeing things where it's like one team is getting both Maokai and Cho'Gath as jungle top, and they're going into things like, you know, Shen, which I feel A, can't really bully you in lane, and B, is going to get outscaled. And then if the team does not bring like hyper-scaling DPS in the form of like Cassiopeia or some sort of big AD carry, it gets so hard, because then if the game just stalls out, you pretty much lose by default.
Well, we'll key back into this draft here. Zac, Elise, and Cho'Gath were EchoFox's 3 bans. Talon joined by LeBlanc and Shen. Interestingly, Brandini's only champion that he's played this split of the LCS. Caitlyn was the first pick for CLG, and they actually are going to get Maokai on the back end of this rotation because EchoFox decided on Sejuani and Thresh. Now, Thresh totally getting one of these picks, but Maokai to me seems to be maybe one of the best champions to be taking very early in a draft.
Yeah, I certainly prefer Maokai pick over the Sejuani, simply because I don't really see Sejuani as much of a flex. Yes, it can go top, but we're really only seeing it jungle. It can go support as well.
On this team list.
But I do think that it's one of those things where Maokai is, to me, the best top lane tank right now, and probably the best tank jungler. Like, there is some argument as far as, you know, Cho'Gath and like the peak level of effectiveness that they could have, but Maokai is so simple and such a high baseline level of effectiveness that I think it's an extremely powerful flex pick for top and jungle. And it gives you a lot of flexibility in the draft.
Have to agree. And there's actually Soraka, so a bit of a throwback support pick there for Aphro. Going to be pairing that with Stixxay's Caitlyn. Froggen looks like he might be back on Taliyah as he joins back into the NA LCS. He's most played champion of the split, and certainly one that EchoFox kind of seem to like picking just to shore up some of their mid to late game. It really does make sieging and taking objectives that much easier. And Froggen can also always go to a side lane, which he does love as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I'd also say, as far as the Soraka pick, one of the things that's kind of interesting about it is if you're playing a more slow-paced team fighting style with tanks where the fights are kind of dragging on, well, Soraka becomes extremely effective. The longer a fight goes, the more heals the Soraka gets off, the more effective she's going to be. So while I do think they're going to have to play somewhat safe in the 2v2 bot lane, and that's why they're banning out, you know, high-pressure picks such as the Kalista Thresh bot lane has the fight of an all-in. If you can't do that when you get to a team fight, if it's, you know, Sejuani and Thresh and Maokai and all these frontliners hitting each other, well, Soraka can really turn the tide of the battle.
Certainly can, as Aurelion Sol and Jax got banned. So 2 target bans there for EchoFox in their phase 2 bans. And Kalista will be joined by quite probably another AD, but we'll see what CLG have in mind. It is Camille instead, so another top laner taken away from Brandini as Mash flashes the Draven.
Yeah, so the Camille ban, I think, is just in response to Jax, simply because Jax is actually a very good matchup into Camille. So that is why CLG, in my opinion, is actually responding with that. They're expecting that sort of pick, so you kind of ban out what your opponent's ban would be good against. And that does make some sense, but I think in general, you know, if you are looking to play a tank in the top lane, Jax is not something that you really want to play into that anyway, because they can kind of hold you at a turret. It's very hard to like burst them down. It's very hard to take these big advantages if you're fighting a wave clear tank. Well,
Misfortune actually a pick there for EchoFox, so certainly a champion that kind of fits into these Dustblade ADs that are coming. Obviously, MF operates very differently to a champion like Jhin, but something that we've seen probably definitely in solo queue. I'm not too sure around the world if it's been played in competitive, but interesting option here for EchoFox.
Yeah, it certainly has come out from time to time. One thing you always have to worry about a little bit, though, is, I mean, well, it's probably going to be a Jarvan top and a Maokai jungle. Yep. So Maokai jungle should be a little bit less tanky, but there's still going to be the threat of this big front line, and lethality AD carries do not deal well with tanks. Misfortune does not deal well with tanks. This is someone who, you know, does not have move block, kind of is stuck there actually trying to punch through those targets. So we'll see if this composition is going to be able to kind of match up well against that of CLG, because with Jarvan and Maokai frontline supported by that Soraka, it could be tough for the Misfortune to kind of find their opportunity. That said, they do have a pretty strong wombo combo. If you can actually lock people up with the Sejuani ult, you have Thresh CC coming out of that. You can also combo that up very easily with Taliyah and the MF ultimate. So this is a very powerful AoE engage, and it just became even more powerful with the Rumble ult. So they are looking to catch someone like the Syndra or the Caitlyn, burn them down with their ultimates very, very quickly in a team fight.
Standard counter pick there for Huhi in the mid lane. Echofox didn't really spend too much time protecting Froggen's mid pick there, but Rumble is the last pick as Echofox gave Brandini counter pick. Is curious here, and it kind of went from, yeah, like you said, a very straightforward front to back kind of engage heavy comp to now significantly more damage with still a decent tank coming through the jungle.
Yeah, and I mean, you still have essentially two frontliners for both teams, right?
Yeah.
The Jarvan is going to be building mostly damage and health at the start of the game, so not really a true tank, but still can kind of perform that role. Thresh similarly can perform that kind of a role, and then you have two jungle tanks. Like, top laners generally have more consistent income, so they are going to be beefier, stronger tanks, but we don't have any true tank coming from those solo lanes, so we'll see how Dardoch and Grig are going to do. Definitely two explosive team fighting tanks, and a lot of DPS on both sides.
Yeah, kind of fun to watch here. I think this is maybe where we're looking at as far as the patch coalescing into a lot of these comps that look a lot like this. Definitely excited to see what Aphro can do on Soraka. Always been someone that loves playing these healing and shielding and range supports. And like you pointed out earlier, if everyone's just playing, you know, an arms race effectively to be the tankiest of all, then Soraka does help a lot there. Gate, of course, have to watch out for any potential picks. It's actually quite a good aggressive 2v2 as well, though any lane into Caitlyn kind of feels like you nullify any aggression. So lots to look for here in this first game, as this is the first time we'll see these two teams on the patch.
Yeah, it certainly can, but that being said, I mean, this is Thresh with Ignite, so there is the potential for all-ins, right? Like, there is the potential to actually burn down this Caitlyn or catch the Soraka and burn them down very, very quickly in one of these fights, especially if a jungler is going to come in. We know how good Thresh is at providing that gank assist. So we'll see if they can actually pull that off. But if you do play a passive lane, expect Caitlyn to push you in, expect Caitlyn to bully you out, and kind of eke out these edges, because Caitlyn can trade out some of her health for that of Soraka, and Soraka will just keep healing and back up over and over again.
Yeah. We'll see what happens here at level 1. We've seen a lot of strong blue side leashes in particular.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Looks like everyone's just kind of fanning out for now. And regarding the entrance to the Raptors, Dardoch maybe trying to get some saplings thrown in towards the own Raptor camp there. And looks like Darshan and Brandini going to have a tussle. Darshan just going to get some damage done there. So just some trading in again. CLG poking forward, looking for vision. Looks like Fox will do the same and actually move a ward onto that Raptor camp. Aphro hits it once, but no sweeper, so unable to clear that. Will be some nice early vision there for Fox.
Yeah, going to be able to set up some vision. CLG, obviously, they're trading their own vision for that. Both teams going to be able to get the Raptor ward. We'll see. There's not going to be any crazy leash, it looks like, happening right now, and I think that's the main reason that EchoFox want to get some vision down. We've seen some of the leashes that you can do with Maokai, even in EU, having their bot lane leash a buff and then just pulling it back into the sapling while they're clearing on the other side of the map to essentially get level 3 at around 215. So you can pull off some pretty crazy setups. This is just going to be a solo start for Dardoch, though, and he will be able to clear it out pretty quickly, but this is by no means some power leash.
Yeah, I think it's been sort of interesting watching kind of transitioning back to tank junglers, how a lot of these aggressive jungle players kind of start to, you know, relearn some of their own tendencies. As Darshan got a great trade there onto Brandini, just smacking him all the way through the tri-bush.
Yeah, and I mean, Dardoch, without a leash, cleared the camp faster than Grig did with a leash, and his top laner gets a pretty big disadvantage off of that, taking quite a bit of damage, and Rumble wants to be someone who's able to push, so we'll see if this does actually come into play, but Grig's clearing just fine, and both junglers are going to be able to make their way around.
Should be alright, as looks like Soraka Caitlyn running at full speed right now. Stixxay able to push that lane in, Aphro getting some harassment down. No spell thieves, does have that corner.
Oh, level 2 roam for Froggen. He's actually popping Ghost.
Very aggressive here. Flash forward there for Gate. Ignite's already down on the Stixxay. Flash has been burnt. Froggen looking for that knockback in, but he doesn't actually have it. E goes down, and Stixxay walks away there.
Oh, that's a pretty tough roam to actually make work when you don't even have all 3 of your abilities there, but they do get a couple summoners out. Force 2 summoners. Unfortunately, it costs EchoFox 4. So, I mean, it's a Ghost from Froggen. It's both summoners off Gate, and Mash's heal is down. I mean, if that's level 3 on Froggen, they probably can actually get that kill, but now you've kind of sacrificed the mid lane push, so actually quite a bit of CS and experience given up there from Froggen. and the bot lane ends up at an advantage.
Very interesting thing. I mean, we rarely see Froggen leave lanes where there's farm to be had, so super aggressive play.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to pull a Huhi on Huhi. That's a level 2 roam, right? It's not Aurelion Sol, but making that roam down, certainly people would not normally expect it, and they're hoping to catch their opponents off guard. Had CLG not reacted so early, that might have just been a free early kill or two. So he's making that investment to hope that his opponents will not react properly. They do, so it doesn't really pay off, but I think it's a smart choice to mix it up like that sometimes, especially for a player like Froggen, who, as you said, if there's farm to be had, he's never really one to make that roam. And when people are not going to expect it, hey, mix it up a bit. Try to play to your own tendencies.
Well, it was certainly unexpected, but not super successful. Unfortunately, CLG going to feel some pressure, but Stixxay again is building up a wave, denying whatever CS he can, and Mash and Gate, after blowing all of their summoners to go all in for that first blood, going to have to play even more defensively. So this bot lane starting to already tip pretty heavily in favor of Fox, and Mash has a Doran's Ring.
Yeah, it goes back for an early Doran's Ring. So this is actually something I've seen players do on Jhin. I've actually seen Jhin start Doran Ring now, simply because if you're just using most of your mana to actually last hit and you're having to play pretty passively anyway, the mana regen you actually get, as well as the mana on last hit, is pretty impactful. So you can just look for this as more of kind of like a defensive farm it up type build. For Jhin, the thought process is, well, you just last hit with your Qs and so on and so forth. And it's going to be a similar idea here for MF. Dardoch actually staying around quite a long time, canceling his base there, hoping that the Echo Fox bot lane moves forward because Gate has no flash, and it's probably going to be a flash route. Gate's
there's
done.
a good trap there. Dardoch with the flash W. You're going to knock him back with the Q. Gate going to try and get the hook. Does land it into the Stixxay, but first blood over to Caitlyn.
A lot of patience there from Dardoch, and they make it work. I mean, that's the punish, really, for that roam play that they tried to pull off. No flash actually available there on Gate, so no way to get out.
Froggen again going to just push this wave back. Actually kept up very well in farm despite that very early roam. Kind of a testament to Taliyah's early pushing power. But looks like Froggen won't be able to do too much more of that until probably level 6. So just dipping out of lane and a clear ward and force Huhi back to his turret. Like you said, kind of pulled the Huhi on Huhi, so keeping him in lane does have benefits as well, but watch Dardoch's patience here in the setup.
And I mean, Aphromoo is just trying to bait, stepping forward into the Thresh, and Gate should know that Aphromoo is going to play it kind of more intelligently than that. Going for that engage means his fate is sealed. Some pretty interesting rune setup actually for Mash. He's running AP blues, lethality reds, AD quints, so a bit of a mishmash of things, and certainly looking to really burst people down with his ultimate, which is it. You're expecting him to go full lethality build if you do have all those lethality reds. I'm not expecting this to be some sort of auto attack focused build. Very likely going to be a Ghost Blade or a Dust Blade into the other one, and probably just full lethality into Black Cleaver, and try to shred down some of the back line.
You can see that there with 2 longswords. Started with 1, had the Doran's Ring, and now has a second building in towards that hammer. So certainly seen this be successful before. Not exactly sure what Mash's keystone is. That was the other thing I wanted to check. I think it's DFT.
Yeah, Deathfire is definitely the standard when you are going for the lethality build, so that's certainly what you would expect him to go with. And it seems like more people are starting to experiment with AP blues for AD carries. We actually saw Apollo, I believe, go it on Jhin. He went AP blue. So these are some pretty interesting choices. Some of the champions that do have some AP scaling, you certainly have that as an option. But generally speaking, people would take MR or scaling MR or these sorts of things. Some players even will go with CDR on certain AD carries. But this is just a bit of a higher damage option. And since I guess they're not laning against any AP in lane, they're not really worried about that. But at the same time, for Mash, if he's not going to be building any MR and he has 0 MR runes, you're playing against a Syndra, right? Like, Syndra presses R, you will die. So that's definitely one of the big risks as people are going to be building into flat pen, and even having a bit of MR can greatly reduce the damage.
Well, looks like a nice little freeze there on the bot side for Fox. Need to catch up pretty desperately in farm for Match, so we'll see if he can close that gap. Dardoch, in the meantime, just casually stealing away the red buff. The old counter-jungling Maokai striking again as Dardoch, now level 6, could prep for a potential dive in the top lane here. Darshan also level 7, so getting some damage down. Looks like Dardoch's moving up for it.
I mean, you can look for it, but it's very risky against pretty much a full AP Sejuani, and Dardoch gonna have to be a little bit close and careful here as well. Huhi is moving up with 3 men, you can certainly do it, but Darshan's really low, and Grig is here also. I don't know.
Maybe a bit of an overcommitment. There's the equalizer down, gonna force Darshan's flash. Grig also here to power up Brandini, and That's called off really quickly.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, it felt like they were trying to force it pretty heavily. Darshan was trying to push in that wave very, very hard, and the fact that they had already seen Dardoch kind of gave away the play, so Brandini moves forward, forces him off the turret, clears out the wave, and actually gets the flash as well. And Darshan is now put at a pretty big disadvantage because of this. That's actually a pretty sizable wave crashing into his turret. He loses about 2 waves, or at least a wave and a half fully with the experience as well, because he didn't even have his TP, so the play certainly has been turned around on him.
Froggen also ghosted up towards that area, so good coverage there by the mid laner, but down a summoner spell. Granted, it's on a pretty short cooldown, but not going to have it for that next potential roam as Huhi grabs the blue buff, and Froggen will recall. Mash going back. There's that first Soraka Dirk and the extra longsword, so kind of as expected, lots of early lethality, but Stixxay has a massive CS lead in this lane here with the BF sword already up. This Caitlyn's going to just feel so comfortable moving into that mid game.
Yeah, and especially because they were able to actually donate the first blood over onto him. They had that guaranteed kill, so they're able to get it on the ideal target, and now even having the Zerker Greaves, he's just at such a strong position and going to be able to really get to that 2-3 item power spike that much faster. That being said, the Caitlyn nerfs were pretty significant as far as the late game goes. She lost actually quite a bit of scaling attack speed per level, which did end up being fairly significant when you get to the later stages.
Brandini getting some damage down onto Darshan. Actually has a small CS lead here in top lane and holding onto his TP, although Darshan is back up soon. Gate looks for a hook. Aphromoo just runs straight into the chicken pit and gets himself out safely.
You can see the Echo Fox bot lane are trying to make some plays. I mean, the early Moby boost on Gate signifies that they want to move around the map. They want to try to get something done here. Even a red buff actually on Stixxay. So really prioritizing that lane. They know they have an advantage there. That's going to help them have some more lane dominance as it does actually expire. But either way, one of the things that sometimes is actually pretty overlooked about MF is the amount of move speed that she gets from her passive as well as from the W activation. You can actually make these roams a lot more quickly than most other AD carries because your move speed is so high. So especially in conjunction with that Moby Boots Thresh, if you can push out a wave, you can look to actually roam mid lane and try to set something up there.
So Dardoch thinking about a dive here as wards do go down for Gate. Dardoch takes the blast cone back out to the river. So it looks like Fox kind of covering their bases there, but Mash back to the wave. Gate's going to help him out. And looks like CLG just happy to again keep pushing that lane in and continue to get farm leads and keep control of that section. As now Grig actually running out towards his top side. Darshan going to find him. Blast turn away. No, Grig actually queues through. He's going to force the ulti out of Rumble.
Oh, Grig, can he hit his ult? No.
Not going to look for it. A little too far away perhaps. So Dardoch instead going to dive the bot side. Mash locked up forever onto the Equinox. Dardoch able to get a kill.
He just stepped on a trap. He had to have stepped on a trap to actually get silencing felt like that from Aphromoo unless he just straight up stood on it. So we'll see it again, but either way, it looks like Mash just essentially gives up a free kill. They're trying to push for this top lane turret, but CLG should be faster and should be able to knock down this turret first, and they will get that first turret with 3 members here as well as the kill. So Mash falling very, very far behind, and CLG can even continue to push because there's actually no one here to contest this. Plus, their wave is still pretty sizable, whereas the wave on the top side for Echo Fox is really all gone.
Yep, just does there. One caster group left in it as Dardoch instead gonna move on to that Ocean Drake and decide that's the second objective they'll get with all the space they've created here in the play, but still really solid macro. As expected for CLG, just parlaying this bot lane advantage into this.
So I'm guessing he stepped on a trap. We'll actually see. Yep, just walks forward, runs right back into the trap. Silencing field to chain that up. So a pretty big oopsie. That was not a hidden trap by any means. Mash steps on it, gives up his life as well as that turret there. And the turret was certainly going to go down either way, but losing the experience to even more farm when Stixxay is going to have this big an early gold advantage is pretty rough, because this puts him in a spot where he's over 1,200 gold down pretty early just against his lane opponent, and you need to be like pretty strong on an MF to actually make these combos work, to make the burst combos work, because you're not really like that much of a scaling champion in my opinion. It's much more about the early spikes with lethality and trying to win in these team fights very early on. But if you get too far behind, you can't one combo people, and then you're pretty much irrelevant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially when you're going for these sort of builds, I think it can be tricky, but we'll see what Mash can get done here. Stixxay just rotating around CLG with pretty standard stuff here, but certainly something they have well practiced in their years as playing as a team. Stixxay just going to go full siege mode for the next few minutes and try and take down these turrets.
Yeah, has a lot of attack speed, has the AD to back it up with the BF sword, so move around the map, try to take out all these outer turrets as most Caitlyn's do like to do. If you can get that early bot lane advantage, they'll send Darshan bottom to continue matching against Brandini. And he's going to be having a little bit of a tough time of it because of the jungle attention. He got put a few waves back a couple different times. But as long as he's able to hold his own, that is still fine. And we'll see if Mash and Gate can do the same.
Mash has his dust play, but it's kind of busy contending with creeps right now. Can't really start shooting champions, which is what you want with that sort of item. But still, see if the early power can convert into anything.
And, I mean, having that early dust play completion, there's always a chance to actually burst someone down. If you can get a pass-through Q, you want to get those minions low with either some auto preps or your E. If you can get a pass-through Q that actually kills the minion, then hits your opponent, that can do like hundreds of damage, 300-400 damage, even in the earlier stages of the game, which can mean you can put them low enough that you can maybe burst them down with an ultimate. So certainly look for him to try to set up those sorts of plays, but Stixxay should be well aware of that, and not standing in line with those minions is really all he has to do to counter that sort of play. Yeah,
Syndra's dueling does have to play somewhat safely here in the top side, because of course they traded turrets, meaning there's no outer turret to run back to. CLG though, up 2,000 gold, 2 kills, and with those turrets being equal, but CLG getting the bulk of the gold from the first turret.
And part of the reason that they're actually able to siege pretty aggressively here, despite the fact they don't have a turret, is all the vision that they have on the top side. They have 4 pinks around the top side river. They have 4 or 5 wards actually in their opponent's jungle, as well as it looks like the scuttle down there. So I mean, this is a big line of vision, and Echo Fox wants to be able to clear that out, to actually threaten attacks on them, to threaten roams, to threaten ganks. And if they can do that, you'll see Stixxay is just going to back off because he doesn't have a vision. If he doesn't have that, he can't actually siege aggressively.
Yeah, you can see kind of 3 members of Echo Fox and even Froggen moving out into Fog of War. Instead, Echo Fox with Stixxay retreating are just going to go for the Rift Herald instead. So we'll see what counterplay CLG offer here. Looks like maybe a counter push mid is their option as Froggen has dipped out and now actually pretty zoned off by the Syndra.
The Swifty boots early from Dardoch is something you don't see very often anymore. It looks like Echo Fox will be able to secure this. We'll see if they can actually... They got to grab the Herald. Okay, so they do get the buff. They should be fine. But Swifty boots definitely not that common. I feel like almost always now you see people just going for straight-up tank boots because they are so incredibly efficient. But in this situation, I guess he's feeling like, hey, he just prioritizes the actual in-combat move speed. Wants to be able to get out on the map and make something happen.
Oh, Froggen actually forced a flash away. Looks like Huhi had a stun lined up. Dardoch also going to move out, but just walks out with his very speedy boots.
We'll see what exactly the build for Dardoch is going to be here too. You can go for kind of the more selfish, I'm going to be really tanky type builds, like a Spirit Visage, obviously very powerful here against 3 AP topside, the Rumble, and the Sejuani, while he's not building AP, is dealing magic damage, and then Froggen obviously on the Taliyah. There is also a lot of other options, things like Righteous Glory and Knight's Vow are extremely powerful as well to be able to kind of buff up your team, look for engages, and also keep your carries safe. So there's a lot of different kind of thought processes about tank itemization now, and I actually think tank itemization is probably in the best place it's ever been as far as the game goes, because there's tons of different options. It's not the last time we had tank meta where you go Sunfire, Spirit Visage, Iceborne, right? That was literally it. Now there's actually so many different scenarios where different options make sense. The supportive routes, the more kind of greedy self-bully lane routes, and I think it's actually a pretty cool spot.
I think so as well, and there's Aegis of the Legion actually for Dardoch, so we'll see exactly what that turns into.
Should be a locket. I mean, it's possible he goes banner against, well, really almost no like auto attack sort of damage that's going to be in a side lane. If you're expecting it only to be Froggen or Brandini in a side lane, then Banner of Command actually can be a lot of pressure, but I'm not expecting Dardoch to do that. He doesn't seem like that kind of player. Seems certainly more to be the guy who prioritizes the team fight, I think. Although I don't think it would be a bad option.
No, and then, like you said, there's just so many good choices. Like the fact that I said Aegis and your instant reaction was block it, but also maybe Banner, speaks a lot to exactly how much depth the role has right now.
Yeah, and I think it specifically in this game, because there's, you know, if you have like a Jace or a J4 or a Kled or something in the side lane, then they just kill off that banner so easily, but Rumble cannot do that. Locket is obviously very good here as well, because if you're saying, well, the only way the other team wins a team fight is if they instantly burst us down, well, Locket denies that pretty heavily.
Well, it looks like the siege is still ongoing as well. Towers traded again in those top and bottom sides, but the wall going to cut off nobody, knocked back towards safety, but Grig is trying to cut them off with the flank of his own. Dardoch also here behind his team, so 3v3 as the rest of Fox move in the mid lane, but initiation nowhere to be found. Froggen kind of wastes that wall.
Yeah, tried to get the setup, and it's actually a pretty intelligent move from Froggen. If you can get that ultimate to lock them in and then hit them with Grig ultimate, hit them with Brandini's Rumble ultimate, like that is a pretty powerful combo, creating this corridor where they can burn them down from Rumble. But CLG able to disengage, knock down another turret. They're looking for a fight.
Flashing onto Froggen, actually that's the kill. Back is the knock. Shove will come in and knock the tank line forward. Syndra on the flank. He's going to take down Mashes, who he's able to solo that down. Darshan though forced to flash away as Aphro's kind of get absolutely caught out. Dardoch already burnt down. Aphro falls to second as Darshan dives back in for Gate, who does go down to Stixxay. Stixxay firing away, gets another kill as Darshan's able to grab Grig, ace in the hole, blocked by Brandini. Froggen stays safe.
Yeah, pretty close fight there, 3 for 2. CLG does come out ahead, and they're going to look probably to try to force on this Infernal Dragon. We'll see if they go for it, but Echofox has stuck around. Stixxay
flashes in, nets towards Froggen. One more auto needed, does grab it. Stixxay on a killing spree.
And this Caitlyn's getting really strong already, picking up a couple more kills there. Very big, and they will start with the Infernal. We'll see if Brandini can actually head over there and do anything about it, but it looks like they're just going to have to give it up, and that's a big dragon for CLG to take.
Yeah, no ult on Rumble, and Grig just respawned, so real tough because he was forced to burn the Herald in base because the timer was running out.
So one thing they could try to do, and he would have actually wanted this to go bot lane for it, but one of the plays you can make is if you drop Rift Herald bot lane, you can go right to Baron and try to rush it down on spawn as people are responding to that. Throwing it mid lane means A, they have a lot of time to respond, and B, it doesn't even create much pressure for the Baron, so I don't really think they can go for that play, but they are posturing around there, so we'll see if they can get anything done. But CLG, even having so much advanced warning, still actually pretty slow to get here and take down the Rift Herald.
Yeah, looks like they were resetting a bit. Rift Herald does good damage to the turret, but will stay up for now. Still, Fox have to think that that's something they'll be able to get pretty quickly, but we'll kind of watch this again as Darshan's going to start off the fight.
Yeah, Darshan goes in with the flank. Nice ultimate down there onto Froggen. Dardoch getting kind of isolated though and burst down pretty heavily, taking a lot of damage from Mash's ultimate over the wall, but you can see Syndra, how easily he's able to take down the MF if you can actually get there. And the big story is just Stixxay, very strong and untouched in the fight, means he's going to be the big difference maker there. And he's already on 2 items and some pieces. He's going to be way, way ahead of him.
Now done as Huhi all in onto Brandini, who will stay a little safe. Grig
that ultimate.
Aphromoo dead. Match able to get the kill. The ulti's still going. Bullet time running in as Darshan slays the Rumble. Froggen getting chased down by Darshan, but Mash able to grab the double as Dardoch dies again. Darshan still chasing, wants to get it. Flag not quite enough to kill Froggen, who's still kiting it out. Support's down everywhere. 2 carries for 2 utility. Very strange fight, but a 2 for 2 nonetheless.
Yeah, 2 for 2. Nice start to the fight, but once the MF ultimate expires, that's really the end of her usefulness in that fight. She gets pushed out. She gets taken down. CLG again left with more health with the Ocean Dragon regenning them back up, and they're going to be able to move forward and take at least the 1 turret, maybe get some vision and camps on the way out too.
Yep, first tier 2 turret goes down and is in favor of CLG. Mid tier 2 falls to Stixxay, who's continuing to aggressively snowball through this game. The crowd cannon shouldn't be too far away at this point, although Mash, you can see his 2 items, pretty cost efficient and doing a lot here in this fight.
And here's the fight again. Huhi does go actually for the full combo onto Brandini. Darshan able to follow that up, take him down, and you can see Mash getting the big MF ultimate. Does net them the early damage to get a couple kills, but I mean, look how fast he actually goes down to Huhi there, and that's partly because he has no MR in his runes and he has not purchased any whatsoever. He is on these 2 lethality items though, so if he can find the perfect ultimate, they can hope for a teamfight win off of that.
You can see Fox again cutting off the carries for a little while longer, trying to disperse them and win the uneven fight. But unfortunately, carries are a little too strong at this stage for CLG, and unfortunately the news seems to be getting worse. Stixxay with his Zeal, so kind of that first big jumping off point for a lot of these late game carries. Those 3 items will be up soon. Other than that, CLG kind of still developing the rest of their items, though Huhi sitting pretty at 2-0-2 with 2 completed items and a blasting one, moving in for probably a Void Stuff third. So certainly things looking good. 5,000 gold is real nice at this stage of the game. CLG look to be setting back up around Baron.
Especially for a team that most people, I think, would say have a better late game. I think that they have a very straightforward composition. You have like win conditions through sieging, through team fighting. You really can do it all here. Even splitting, I think, can be reasonable on a J4. So pretty powerful stuff for CLG, and having their AD carry at such a strong point is very big for them as well. I'm a little bit surprised to see Dardoch kind of take this sidestep towards what could be a Warmogs here, you know, picking up the Giant's Belt, that essentially is the money right there to actually complete your locket. So if you're going to purchase up the Aegis, it's just flat MR and armor. Like, I don't think it's that great of an item by itself. Generally speaking, you want to actually fully complete it if you're going to go down that route, but perhaps didn't have quite enough gold. And see if they can set anything up here.
Well, again with the Brandini, does not have a Zhonya's ulti. He's used by Huhi, but some shields able to keep him alive, and Thresh plucks him to safety with the Lantern CLG. They're still on the offensive as Echo Fox forced back out towards their base.
And I mean, they do know that Brandini's going to have to go back to base, right? So they're going to start up the Baron here. We'll see how effective this could be. This should, at the very least, get Brandini's teleport coming out, but Echo Fox does not seem to be aware of this whatsoever, and CLG are just two-manning the Baron while attacking them in mid lane. They have not actually tipped them off whatsoever, and the Baron is just going to be gone. There's no way Echo Fox can actually respond to this in time.
Yep, Dardoch tanky enough, and Grig's going to be far too late, going to try and sneak in, but Stixxay, no smite necessary. Even gets it as Darshan blows up Gate, who is face-checking. Hey, it's rough.
Yeah, and that's credit to CLG's vision control. Like, look at all the pink wards around that area. 4 pink wards in the area. Total vision control. And now they can start to siege 24 minutes into the game. Stixxay simply walks right up. He does have to be a little bit careful because they do still have his powerful AoE combo, but I mean, CLG really not very frightened.
Darshan face next to the ultimate. Equalizer going to try and split the middle, but the redemption should heal everyone. Back up Mash, lets it rip. It doesn't really hit anyone of relevance.
And I mean, that's everything from Echo Fox. And what do they get? A little bit of chip damage on a tank? Like, who cares? CLG is going to be able to stay here for sure. This essentially guarantees the inhibitor because there's now 0 threat coming out of Echo Fox. That was the Sejuani ultimate, the Rumble ultimate, and the MF ultimate. So now you just simply walk into the base, you force down the turret, and you take the inhibitor because your opponents cannot fight.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like this. The CLG able to break that inhibitor turret down. Darshan tanking the damage in the front side, but gets his way out. Stun lands on the Grig. He's maybe trying for a knock-up here, but just a little too weak as Stixxay able to hit down the inhibitor. Dardoch actually getting credit for the last hit, but damage done.
Yeah, I mean, even if Grig goes in and knocks someone up, it's a one-way trip. Like, CLG does not have to dive at that point because there's no threat from the backline. You just simply kill whatever tank steps forward. That's a pretty rough situation to be in. And Banshee's build, interesting.
Uh-oh, stun lands on the Grig, who's going to get rooted up by Dardoch. Huhi on a rampage. He takes down the Sedge. Now Stixxay after Brandini, blue buff. I think did go over to Fox here. We'll have to see where it landed, but CLG with a pick, and now back to Infernal.
I don't really understand the Banshee's build from Brandini. Like, great, you want some MR, you don't want to die to Syndra, but you could also just buy a Zhonya's, and Zhonya's the ultimate, and that's going to give you much more survivability against the main people that you're going to be laning against. Like, if you're 1v1 against Darshan, Banshee's build is not going to help you very much. It's not going to help your survivability against Stixxay either. So, to me, Zhonya's is pretty much just flat out the better buy, but maybe I'm missing something here.
I'll call it puzzling.
Yeah.
This again.
Either way, CLG, nice catch, utilizing that Maokai ultimate as well. Does catch over onto Brandini. I think had Stixxay been a little bit more used to playing with it, he would have known he could have chased around and perhaps picked up that kill as the root does land. Because the further the Maokai ultimate travels, the longer the root lasts. At full duration, it's like 2.5 seconds almost, maybe 2.4 seconds. So it's very long route, easily can be followed up with the Caitlyn trap, and you just kind of have to get good at judging if that's going to land or not.
Yep, certainly could have been a thing there for Stixxay, but largely unnecessary as we've seen in this game. Double Infernal Deck for CLG, 9,000 gold ahead with an inhibitor already taken and still sieging with more than a minute left on Baron buff here in top lane.
I mean, honestly, this game has really kind of looked like this series from Echo Fox last week, where they're just not putting up that much of a fight. It feels very half-hearted. It doesn't feel like they're actually fully committing to their comp. You know, when have we seen Grig flashing in, looking for a Sejuani ultimate? When have we actually seen their combo be pulled off even a single time? It feels like they're so hesitant. They bleed out objectives on the map. And then at this point, you're 10,000 gold down, 27 minutes in. Even if you find that perfect fight, do you even win? Like, it's so tough, and they seem to paint themselves into these corners time and time again. I mean, now Stixxay has a QSS. Now there's a Banshee's Veil on Huhi. They have these extra bits of protection that even if you can actually pull off the combo, it's probably not going to work.
Looks like Dardoch did actually go for that Warmog, so maybe just being a bit more selfish as ult's going to keep him locked up, but Dardoch very tanky, able to soak up all this damage here, and CLG still firing over the wall, just going to wait for that to crumble and go back in as Froggen and Darshan looking for a 1v1, but Darshan way too far ahead. Nabs Froggen, and Echo Fox going to try and chase him up, but CLG just taking the rest of their base.
And I mean, I think this is about all she wrote for Echo Fox, as now your mid laner is down. Darshan could even TP back if he wants, but another inhibitor down. This game is looking pretty much done. CLG can even push for the win if they want, or they can go bot and get those final inhibitors. But Echo Fox is not even fighting. You're not going to fight at the first inhibitor, you're not going to fight at the second. When are you going to fight?
Yo, actually not then, because that's already gate going down. A double kill actually for Huhi as Mash falls. Froggen already dead from the earlier 1v1, and now CLG just with an easy dive through towards the Nexus. The Fountain was the target, but Grig's not going to make it. That's an ace for CLG. They'll knock down the Nexus turret and take a very smooth-looking game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, domination is all you can really say. A 28-minute end, 15,000 gold ahead here for CLG. They made it look exceptionally easy. Nothing really ever worked for Echo Fox here. And it's been the story for the last week or two, really, for Echo Foxes. It feels like they're falling into further and further disarray, and whether it's they're trying to prepare for the future, they're trying to make this 10-man squad work, or they're just not actually executing in the game. Whatever it is, Echo Fox really has been struggling, and has felt like they're not able to put up much of a fight in these last couple games.
And I think kind of an interesting one there for CLG, kind of looking at what did we learn in just one game on this patch, right? If you have a look at the team comp, I think in general, these are all picks I expect from CLG. The exception will be something like Maokai for Dardoch, but champion's so strong and so meta that, like, of course you're going to be playing it as an LCS jungler. Yeah,
certainly. I think Dardoch did very well on it. I think that the Warmogs, made a lot of sense. And if you want to be that frontliner, soaking up all the poke from your opponents, you can back off, you can heal up. He farmed well, he ganked well, he basically performed his role, right? But every lane essentially ended up winning. Even Darshan, who was pressured very heavily multiple times, ends up 3-0-7, to the 0-2 and 3 for Brandini. So Darshan did very well. Mid lane was winning. Bot lane was winning extremely heavily. And at that point, if you can't actually force team fights and kind of execute on this powerful combo that you've drafted, you're going to stand no chance, because CLG moves around the map. They take all your turrets, they take your jungle, they take the Baron. It's just kind of cut and dry.
Yeah, and I think we see that a lot in snowballed Caitlyn games, because that's just kind of how that works. But I mean, again, very straightforward stuff there, I think, in general for CLG. So we'll have a close look, because we actually are going to break the game down here, exactly how this happened for CLG. Yeah. But for me, I didn't learn very much if I'm Echo Fox, something else that's like, well, these are picks I probably expect you to play anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's nothing really to take away as far as like, oh, like this is some secret pick that we just have a counter. I think that these are all picks that they should be comfortable playing against. Jarvan has been meta for a super long time. Like, all these picks are very standard, including even the Maokai if you've been playing solo queue quite a bit. So I think for Echo Fox, it's just a matter of execution. You have to look at how you actually played the game out. Where do you think it went wrong? You drafted this very powerful team fight AoE combo. Why could they not actually pull that off? Was it vision? Was it, not actually having the confidence to look for the engages? And that's something that they need to discuss and actually figure out.
We'll actually have a look at kind of the impact Dardoch had in just a second, seeing what he was able to do. Because again, Maokai, very strong jungler. It's not the same aggressive, like, assassin-style jungle where you can make play after play after play and snowball the game. But I think tank junglers have this really great sense of, like, if you're an intelligent player that kind of knows your gank class, and this was a great example of Dardoch's patience really rewarding him here.
And I mean, you can make plays, but it's more setting up your teammates to succeed, right? You're not really setting yourself up to succeed and hard carry a game. A Maokai carries a game by getting your other teammates into a very strong point. And some focus on bot lane. He goes to the winning lane, already knowing summoners were down for the first gank. They get the first blood directly over on a Stixxay, giving him even more of an advantage. Repeat gank there. Yes, Mash screwed up and stepped on the trap, which gave them a free kill, but they were going to get the turret anyway. So I think he played very intelligently, went to the strong point of the map, knowing that even if Sejuani shows up there, they win the 3v3, so who cares?
Yeah, I think so as well. And for me, it is nice to see Dardoch kind of grow as a player. I mean, tanks is something you kind of expected to play in this meta game, but Dardoch, I mean, his most played champion this play is Gragas, which is a far cry from the Lee Sin cards that he would have played before.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really been, I think, what CLG fans expected with him coming in. People are expecting, this crazy mechanical jungler who's going to hard carry all these games, and he really has been kind of back in the shadows a bit. I think despite the fact that CLG is tied for first, Dardoch has not really been the star, and whether it's because he's taking a different role or he's not playing as well or he doesn't need to play that style is up for debate. But either way, turning in a solid Maokai game here.
Well, have a look Speaking of star players, on what Froggen was able to get done there for EchoFox. Because again, first time back in the saddle. Taliyah, I mean, this roam was very creative, but unfortunately didn't quite work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out, and a good job by Huhi. You can see the question mark ping already calling missing very early on, so CLG is in full retreat, and this is a level 2 Froggen, so he actually does not have his seismic shove to pull back Stixxay and get that kill. And then, you know, Froggen trying to set up some of these plays with the Weaver's Wall, trying to actually kind of pin them in, you know, set up these nice chokes for the Rumble ultimate, but they were never really able to fully make it work. It always felt like it was one piece of the combo or they came in at separate times. You know, ideally, you really want, okay, great. You cut them off, they're grouped up, you hit them with Sejuani ultimate, you hit them with the Rumble ultimate, you hit them with the MF ultimate, all at the same time, but it was never really happening. And you know, here, Froggen was over on the side trying to set up the Weaver's Wall. Darshan simply takes the 1v1 and kills.
Yep, too late at that point here, trying to stay out of the cage. Darshan able to flash back into it and get that 1v1 kill. And you can see a very smooth-looking gold graph there for CLG, just casually snowballing this game.
Yeah, I mean, taking 10 turrets to 2, they get all the dragons. Their Goldie was never really in any threat. They get an uncontested Baron very early in the game. This was really good stuff from CLG, and honestly, it's what you need to see from them if they want to be that best team in the league, right? If you really want to prove, hey, we are the #1 team, you know, we're not tied for first, we are the best, then they need to be able to take down teams like EchoFox very easily.
I think so as well, and I think again, only one game worth of speculation, but this may be kind of a world where CLG are really set up to succeed. Because I mean, Stixxay with a good front line, only late game carries. It feels like CLG again. Every team will take to the patch differently, and I like that every team's kind of able to find what works for them. Yeah,
definitely, and it'll be interesting to see if Dardoch is going to pick up things like some of these more kind of assassin-y junglers like Kayn and stuff. That would be pretty exciting because that is more traditionally the playstyle you look for. So seeing people find their own kind of niche within the pocket, like within the patch, that works, it can always be pretty exciting.
Well, only one game down, but we're taking a quick break. But when we return, it's game 2 between EchoFox and Canalogic Gaming. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the North American LCS.